Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and I'm here to talk to you again about Office 365. And today we're going to talk about Power BI, business intelligence, one of my favorite parts of Office 365. And we're going to show how to connect it to a SharePoint survey. And there's other ways to do surveys. We'll have a later video where we can use Microsoft Forms and then Flow to copy that data to SharePoint and then go to Power BI. But on this one, let's just assume that you have a SharePoint survey, and I'll show you why it makes sense to use a Power BI on it and how you do it. So as I mentioned, I'm the new author of this book, Creating Business Applications with Office 365, and talks about SharePoint, Power Apps, Power BI, and other technologies. And you can see our page here. You can go order it on Amazon, pre-order it if you want. I encourage you to subscribe because I'm doing lots of videos. I'd love to have you both viewing these and being a subscriber. So, all right, let's get started. So I'm gonna go over to Office 365, and I'd already clicked the button to show all the apps, so now they're in alphabetical order. So let's go to SharePoint. And I just about a year ago, made this survey for testing and using it in the book and so forth. So I've still got it under recent on one of our places called Satisfaction Survey. So let's just respond to it real quick just so we see what it's like. There we go. So basically all these tools will just say satisfied on each of these. They have a bunch of questions and then you can put some information. So we'll just say some test comments here. All right, so for the first question is, why do we want to use Power BI? What's wrong with what's in there? So let's go over and look at the overview. And we can see, and SharePoint does a pretty decent job. It gives us, some ideas of what we've done by percentage. But here's the big problem, is that it doesn't show any kind of time data. This is everybody who's ever answered the survey. So one thing's, when I'm at the Air Force Academy, but in my last job I was in the communications squadron, and we had a survey that went back to like 2015, and so there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of responses. And what do we do with the fact that maybe we were doing a good job 2 years ago, but we're not doing a good job now? You can't really see that data here. And so that's the biggest thing that we can do in Power BI, is get some time data so we can say, and I built reports for them that said, okay, what do we do the last 30 days, the last 90 days, the last year, whatever time frame, and we'll put a little slider on there so that we can customize that date range if we want. All right, so let's get next in. We need a tool called Power BI Desktop. So you can download that for free. I've got it open here, and we'll publish it. If you have the right things, you'll be able to publish it to Office 365. But you can even use the tool if you don't have that version of Office 365 that has it. You can just open it in the desktop. All right, so what we want to do is we want to get data. And we can go more here, and we'll just type in SharePoint. And I usually just say SharePoint list. These other ones, at least the online list, I'm sure it's the same. And so what I like to do, I want to make sure we don't have any typos. So I like to just copy the URL right there. Notice I'm not getting the name of the list. We're going to select that. We just want the site. So we'll paste that in. And it'll give me the list of it there, so we can do any of these. But there's our satisfaction survey. So there's our data, and we're just going to load it. And one of the things I love about Power BI is that we can work with the data after we've done it without changing the original data. So in this case, we're going to go back, add our own columns, and manipulate it. And then as more surveys get done, it just always loads in more data, but we don't have to keep redoing it. So we come up here and we say Edit Queries, and it's going to want to bring it on my other monitor, but let me bring it over here. get inside our screen here. All right, and then we can go look at it. So notice this ID is going to be nice. We're going to end up using that to count. So that's a good feature. If you don't have any if you're using Excel or something and doesn't have a unique number, you can use the row number function to give us a unique line for each one. And then notice what it did with the column name. So how satisfied are you? And we don't have the whole thing. So that's the first thing we're going to want to do. So let's go back to our thing. And what's easier is just to copy it here. So literally what we'll do is go in and rename each one of these columns. And you can shorten them if you need to, but it's not too bad. And luckily they come in the right order, but you can double check by your data if you wanted, just to make sure. Luckily we don't have a real long survey, or I would pause the video while we did all this, but might as well just make it all live here. Make sure I didn't miss one when I scrolled over. Yeah. And then I might shorten this because this has a whole on thing about comments. So I'll just say, change this one to comments. All right, so that's kind of nice. What else do we want to do with it? Well, it's nice. One nice thing when it's a SharePoint, these are not anonymous surveys here. So if you want to do that, that's where the Microsoft Forms is a great solution. So you can say that one will be anonymous. But here, since it's not anonymous anyway, we might as well get who it is that filled it out so we can contact that person if they're not happy. So we get all these extra records and stuff. So we go over to this author one, looks promising, and it shows us some of the data. So let's see if we can find it. I think there's a first name. Oh, we're gonna. Oh, there it was. First name and last name. So let's get rid of all of them, and then we'll go into first name and last name. We could get their email as well if we want to. We probably won't use it, but we expand that. Notice how it gives us all this on the side. So notice I filled out all these, so there's my email. And one thing we could do just as a nice, just kind of show the capabilities. Let's add column, and we'll just do custom column, and let's just call it full name. We're gonna add another column in a minute, but let's just call it full name. Now let's see if we can find that author. Yeah, there we go. Let me see if I can remember if that's a. Wasn't really planning on doing this one. Let's see if it's that. No, let me pause for a minute. I wasn't thinking about that one, so I got to go look up exactly what our concatenation operator is. So I'll be right back. All right, well, I've looked it up. I should have gone with my first instinct because I'm a Visual Basic guy from the way back. So that's what I'm most comfortable is the ampersand. And then we want double quotes. So we'll do that with a ampersand. So as you might know, in JavaScript and some other languages, you use a plus symbol. So those are usually your best choices. So let's try that. Yeah, so it just gave me a nice name, so I don't have to use the two of them together. So another thing that's key, probably the last thing we want to do in our custom columns, is we really want to know how old the data is. So first thing we want to do is we know when this was created. So if we go back over from the left, we can find the created date. Let's find it there. Here we go, created. Now it looks like a date, but to make this work, you want to make sure and you want to change the type and see it's not checked anywhere, so it doesn't really know what it is. So let's just tell it that that's a date time. Okay, so now if I right click, you'll see if I go to change type, see how it's got the check mark. So that'll give us, and now what we want to do is we want to add another custom column, and I usually like to call this days past. And then we have to do a little bit of its programming in here. So we do date time, see how we get IntelliSense from. And then if we were in JavaScript, we'd say like new date, but or many like InfoPath, we'd say now or today. And so this DAX language here has a similar. So it's date time dot local now. And the thing to watch is that I've failed on this before. Make sure you put the parentheses to call it a method and then close it. So that gives me the current date. And then we do minus, and since I don't want to look it up, I'm just going to do it that way, created. Sometimes you get an error. If not, if you do, you just kind of fix it. And if I hadn't put that column in the right format, I'd get an error. But so far, so you see some of these I did over a year ago. And one of them I just did, oh yeah, and that reminds me. So see how this says it was actually in the past. And that's because the survey, being Office 365 and all that, will give us, will change the time zone. So I'm in the mountain time zone here and not in the local one. So I'm gonna paste in some code and then explain it so that I get it right. So I go back to this custom column again, and I'm gonna add a duration to it. And this is change in time zone to 6 hours later, to do with mountain time. There you go. And so you can see it's just before I did this video, I added a few of these as 25 minutes ago and so forth. So that gives us, and then we don't really need all these decimal points on it. So we'll go in here and change this type to a whole number. That just makes it easier. So it just 0 because we did it the same day is what we already wanted. So very nice. And we come in here and go file and say close and apply. And what I like to do is I'll build like all of them. So I'm gonna call this, I'll just say last 7 days. But we'll build the entire look and then we'll just copy the pages over and change the filter. Okay, but what the last 7 days means is that we're gonna put a page level filter, and notice here's all our fields over here. So we can go days past, like that, is less than or equal to 7. So all the data on this page will just be only within the last 7 days. And then we'll change that, and then we can put it for like the last 2 years or something and see all our data. All right, so what do we do now? Well, I kind of like pie charts for this type of data. So we come in here, and the hardest thing is that typically when we're trying to count, we need to count a unique value. So remember I talked about the ID there. So what we'll put in there is ID like this as the value. And notice it already defaults to the count, but then I like to rename it. And I'll just say number of responses. Like that. That makes a little bit more different. Now we have to look here to get if we really cared which order it's in. But we'll come in like that. And then we can make that full screen. But notice how we get some rollover as well. And we don't have any particularly good things to put in the rollover at this time. Oh, there it was. We can go into focus mode. So see, so we got dissatisfied, satisfied. Now one thing we're going to fix later, thing to really watch out for is that Power BI will just put whatever color it wants. And on something like this, I like green to be good and red to be bad. So this one's actually not too bad, but it's just lucky that it gets it. But see, notice very satisfied is like this black, and very dissatisfied is gray. So we'd like a continuing thing from very green to very red going through there. So once we have all these done, we'll let them go. So let's just copy that one. We'll make these a little bigger eventually. So no, all we have to do is just change the legend there, get rid of that one. Let's make sure these are two different. Whoops. Oh, I can't really see the title that way very well. So let's make this a little bit bigger so that we can see it. Are you satisfied with the timeliness and the courtesy? Okay, so they are two different things. Do another one. And we'll take the third one. Make sure we put that at the top. Overall satisfaction. And we'll do one more. And we'll put that one. There we go. All right. And then what I usually like to do is put a card here. Let me find the card. There it is, a single card. Like that. And again, I'll put the count and call it the number of responses. And what's nice there is then as you drill down, you want to click on satisfy for a particular question, it'll come through and show you what that is. Okay. Now another thing we can do is we'll put a slicer on here. And what we do on the slicer, we can put the created date or we could put the number of days. Let's put the created on there. That's kind of nice. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. Actually, yeah, and then we'll make this one a little wider to match. There we go. And what that slicer does then is allow us to move this back and forth. So if we just wanted to see today's date, we could move it to that. All right, and then with this space left, we could do some more things, but I usually like to have one table in there. So we'll just take, I don't want to spend all day on this video. So let's actually put it there and I'll make the other ones match. We'll put that, whoops. That one match, there we go. So we can spend a little more time, but that gives you the idea. And then what we want to do is, let's use that full name so we know who did it. We'll put the answers to each one of these questions in there. But maybe above that, we'll put the comments. There it was. And we may put the date in there too. Maybe I'll put that at the end. There we go. All right, so you can kind of get the idea. When we publish that, you'll see that we can go in and we'll drill down and so forth. But we can get a little of it here. So notice if I want to see, okay, who did, well, I can't even read it, who is neutral. Notice how the 5 changed and just the data, and then we can export that to Excel, and then these other kind of reflect how they answered on those questions as well. All right, so let's fix the problem with the colors, because what I'll normally do is get one color and then I'll put it in the clipboard. This is a good place to use in Photoshop because you can, and I'll expand and get rid of this fields too, so we got a little more space on it. So what you want to do, oh, actually I need this guy. Get rid of this visual. Oh no, I don't. So I want to come in here. And then I go to my data colors. And that's why it's real important to go ahead and in your sample data, make sure you have one of each color, because that only shows you the colors that are already there. And so I don't want to go in and find all the, what I normally do is go into Photoshop and get the hex color, but I'll just use it on my theme color. So we'll make that one satisfied, and then we'll go a little bit further in. Whoops, actually I did the reverse, sorry. So I want the darkest to be very satisfied, and then we'll go, I don't really have a good green, but I'll put that one for satisfied. And actually what I should have done, now that I think about it, I should have done this and then copied them over, but that's okay. So neutral is yellow, is pretty good already. Dissatisfied, maybe I'll put that one. And then very dissatisfied, the dark red, kind of like that. So I can quickly come in, I'll just do that again real quick. So satisfied was kind of there. Notice how they were way off on this one. Whoops, it was dissatisfied, very dissatisfied, down red here. And neutral should be like that one. Very satisfied was this dark green. Here we go. So we'll do these two again. Satisfied was somewhere like that. Oh, we have a blank one, so we haven't seen that before, so I'll just put that as gray. It means that they didn't answer. Very dissatisfied was here. Very satisfied was there. So this one, oh, and then neutral. I was going to say we didn't have a neutral, but there it went. Oh, and this dissatisfied should be there. Okay, and we'll do one more. Satisfied should be there. Dissatisfied here. Neutral there. Very satisfied. Blank, we did like a gray one. Very dissatisfied there. Okay. So we got this all set up. Then what we can do is we can duplicate page. And we'll rename it. And we'll say last 30 days. So all we need to do here, if we go back to our filters, I want to kind of reset. Let's make sure the other one, looks like that didn't actually take. So let's put it back. Less than or equal to 7. There, you see how it changed our data there. So that makes more sense because we only got 4. And then this, I don't think any of them are different in the last 30 days. Oh, this is filter on all pages. Okay, so I actually messed this up. So let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. They've just actually recently added that feature, so I need to be a little better where I'm doing it. So filters just on that page. And we'll say less than or equal to 7. And then this one will be less than or equal to 30, which is effectively the same set of data. Let's duplicate this again, and we'll just say last year. I'll change that to 365, which again won't change the data as much because it looked like those other ones were a little over a year. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Wanted to duplicate page, and we'll say all time, which really all that means is then we can just get rid of that and get back our other things. All right, so what do we do now? Well, we can publish. Well, it's save. Actually, I haven't even saved this yet, so that would be a good idea. This is stuff for our book, but we'll just say, actually, let's put it somewhere else. Let's put it in documents. Call it SharePoint survey is good. Oops. Not getting, I guess I need to sign in. Oh yes, I'm actually signed in on my Academy account. So let me pause for a minute and we'll change my sign in and then we'll finish that. All right, well I'm now signed in as the right account. There we go. And I come up here and publish and I just have a single workspace here. When I'm at the Academy, it's got a workspace for every one of my sites, but I'll just say select here. It says you already have one with this name. Do I want to replace it? And I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, usually that's a pretty common thing where you just replace the new one. So it's publishing it out. And then the big beauty here is that now you can open it in the browser and all your users don't need this Power BI desktop. So there's a lot of cool things you can do, but let's make it full screen. So again, we can see it a little bit different. You can see the, with the question and get to see my the inference. We can change our, see I did it which one I was on. So let's go back here and then we can change our things. Actually, this one's probably a little easier to see it. So if we start changing our data, see how those go on, or I can click, okay, well, who's very dissatisfied? And I can say that, and then I come over and look at the comments and say, okay, oh yeah, the comments were first, I forgot. So I didn't actually have any comments here. Let's try another one. I had a bad day was the comment. The other thing I could have done, I see when I put that year on there, I really didn't get the greatest format. So let's go show you real quick how to fix that. Been better for me to do that before I copy this over. So I could have fixed it. But yeah, see where I come in here and I click and I just go back to create it like that. And then we go over and see. And then I've actually got a, with the date and the time in there, which I don't really need. So let's just show you how to fix that real quick if I wanted to. I can go over to our data, go to created. And if I go over to modeling, see where it says the time, and I can just go in and change that. Oops, come on. Yeah, and just tell them all I want is that. Then I get the date, and then if I go back and look, it's kind of hard to see, but I've got just the date there. So let's fix that real quick, and then we'll republish. So since I had already duplicated the table, I need to go change that on each of my tabs, but no big deal. Do it over here. All right, we'll save it. Go to Home tab, publish it. And we could go open it again, or we could just hit escape here and refresh, or actually just press return here. Should be enough to get it for us. Let's try it again. Didn't seem to. There we go. There we go. Notice that it defaulted where I wanted because I saved it from the last 7 days tab. And it still does have the time on there, so I didn't quite get everything I want. But anyway, you get the idea, and we can drill down. The other thing I really like, that if you get somebody who doesn't have Power BI, you can export this whole thing to PowerPoint. You can do to PDF as well, but I particularly like the PowerPoint because it'll give them a slide that corresponds to each one of your tabs here. and just shows basically like a screen capture of that thing. You also have to watch, notice how it remembers your settings, so if you want to go in. So I hope this has been helpful. We'll have lots more videos on Power BI, but you can see we got a lot more functionality, and particularly the ability to drill into the most recent time periods or any time period we want to look at, as opposed to SharePoint just gives us all the data at once. So see you next time.